Welcome back to HR with Love. I'm Rahana Latif, and today we're exploring how leaders can move beyond the noise of the constant demands and truly lead from a place of awareness and authenticity. My guest today is Dr. Ron Stotts, a pioneer in conscious leadership and mindfulness, who has spent decades guiding leaders to transform from the inside out and create meaningful impact. Dr. Ron, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really very grateful to have you here.
Glad to be here.
For people who hear the phrase conscious leadership and roll their eyes, what does this actually mean? And how is this different from traditional leadership models?
We talk about leadership today. Most people are still operating from that old paradigm, one of built on control, competition, and performance at all costs. That leadership coming from that top-down controlling model. And traditional leadership is about managing others and driving results and keeping the machine running and efficiently and effectively, and it's all about that the making money. And while that can create short-term success, and I do see that, it oftentimes leaves the leader and their team burned out, disconnected, and unfulfilled. And so conscious leadership is a very different game, and it starts really from the inside. It's not all that outside doingness and beingness. It's really more an inner game where it's about not tightening control, but expanding awareness. Does that make sense? It's not about controlling others. It's about becoming more aware of what they need, who they are, and how to best support them. And it's not about how do I get others to perform. A conscious leader is going to be looking at, well, who am I being as a leader? In other words, they take responsibility for that leadership role. They understand that the outer game of leadership results in a better culture, greater innovation. It's always kind of a reflection of their own inner game, their clarity, their emotional intelligence, and their presence really defines the leadership and the performance that comes from that.
A lot of high performing leaders are driven by ambition. Do you think consciousness and ambition can coexist? Or does one eventually win over the other, especially when making cutthroat decisions that affect people's lives?
Well, can consciousness and ambition coexist? That's really a powerful question. And it does really go straight to the heart of what transformational leadership is all about. Ambition in itself isn't the problem. It's where that ambition is coming from that determines whether it uplifts or destroys an environment, whether it's a challenge that supports the person and their environment, their employees, or whether it really makes it more difficult and results in burnout. So traditional ambition often comes from ego, from trying to prove something, controlling outcomes, avoiding failure. It's my way or the highway sort of leadership. And that kind of drive that can create quick wins, but usually at the cost of people's trust, health, long-term success. So that's where you start getting burnout. That's where you get really some of your best people leaving. Yeah, you might have that short-term win, but long-term doesn't work. So conscious ambition, on the other hand, is driven by purpose. It's not about being the best in the world. It's about bringing the best to the world. A conscious leader still has that fire, but it's fueled by service rather than by fear. And so when you're coming from that place, even the hardest decisions, the ones that impact many, many people's lives, are made with a different kind of clarity. They're not reacting to anxiety and scarcity. They're truly responding from a level of awareness that allows them to see the big picture. They're able to look at the bigger picture and ask, well, what truly serves the whole here? What brings out the best in everybody? And the truth is cutthroat decisions are usually very fear-based. So conscious decisions come from really connection, and they create long-term trust, innovation, and loyalty that no fear-based culture can match. So yeah, consciousness and ambition absolutely can coexist, but only when ambition evolves from ego-driven success to purpose-driven impact. When that shift takes place, and that's the kind of ambition that doesn't just build companies, it really builds legacies. So a conscious leader's ambition isn't to win at all costs. It's really to create a world where everyone rises together.
I'm curious, is there a big political or corporate leader who you think truly leads with consciousness? Someone who genuinely brings awareness and compassion into systems that often reward the opposite.
That's a good one. Because truly conscious leaders are still rare in politics and in big business, and we're really just in the early stages of that evolution, from shifting over from that old paradigm to the new. But there are leaders showing us what's possible when awareness meets influence. People like Satya Nadella in Microsoft, who really brings empathy and emotional intelligence and a growth mindset into most of the most competitive tech cultures in the world, but he's really transforming Microsoft from a culture of know-it-alls to learn-it-alls. And in doing so, I think he's really seeing reawakening creativity and collaboration at scale. And, so as a conscious leader, he shows that you can lead efficiently, even in a tough system, when you lead from awareness and really from humanity instead of fear and control. And that's a huge difference. But I think it's also important to say that consciousness is, it's not a title. It's really a practice. It's a way of life. It's not about being perfect. It's about staying awake to your impact, being aware of who you are and how you're relating with others, how you're impacting others, especially when the pressure's high. A lot of times people learn to act as if they're conscious, but then when under pressure, they really fold back into their old limited styles. So the real opportunity, is for every leader in business, politics, or even certainly in your family, is to become that example. Because when one person leads from presence instead of pressure, it creates a ripple effect that really truly changes the whole system.
A lot of our listeners are leading busy teams, juggling meetings, emails, and the constant noise. Could you please walk us through a simple practice that listeners can do right now, bringing consciousness into their day?
Yeah, we're really talking about how to shift from an ego-driven, to a conscious ambition. That's really what it's about. And that shift really begins with awareness, self-awareness, and then other awareness. And you can't change what you can't see. If you've got to really, it's a process of the subconscious that's running your life and making it conscious. And it starts by slowing down to notice what's driving you. Is it fear, control, or the need to prove yourself? Or is it, a genuine desire to serve something bigger than yourself? Then practice presence, practice being, breathe and be present, breathe and really be conscious enough to really notice how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and how others are responding. Take a breath before reacting, listen more deeply to yourself and those around you. And, every challenge really becomes a mirror showing you where you can grow. If you don't handle a challenge well, or if you close down rather than open up to it, there's your indicator of where you can grow. And as your awareness grows, your ambition transforms. You still drive for excellence, but now it's fueled by purpose, not by inner pressure and fear of trying to prove yourself to others. And that's when leadership becomes really magnetic, when people follow you, not because they have to, but because you're inspired by who you are. So conscious ambition is simply ambition that's grown wiser. from striving to prove, which are really coming from childhood issues and what they had to do to get love and all of those things. I know most business people don't like to look at that, but they certainly can be at the effect of those subconscious patterns that they develop there. But you're moving from striving to prove yourself, to get acceptance, to be in that place of power, to serving with presence and purpose.
Dr. Ron, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I really appreciate it. But before we end, I would love for you to complete the sentence. The most powerful thing a leader can do is.
Well, the most powerful thing a leader can do is wake up. Wake up to who they are, to the impact they're having, and to the deeper purpose they're here to serve. When leaders wake up, the world around them really changes, rises.
Until next time, everyone, may we all find the courage to pause, breathe, and lead with greater conscience. Lots of love from London. Bye for now.